Briefing. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is approaching, and the electoral landscape is showing some new characteristics. 1. Voter turnout may become a decisive factor. The issue of voter turnout, often considered a cliché, may indeed be critical this time. Democrats excel at mobilizing high turnout voters, while Trump is adept at rallying relatively low turnout groups, such as young men and minority voters. 2. Trump is successfully exploiting divisions within minority groups. In the past, people of color were often viewed as a unified coalition, but Trump is effectively sowing discord among groups like Black and Latino voters, targeting their concerns around immigration and other issues. 3. While Trump's strategies are not entirely new, they appear more effective in the current political climate. He capitalizes on voters' anxieties regarding the economy and crime, blaming these issues on immigration and proposing simplistic solutions, which resonate with some minority voters to a degree. Overall, the 2024 U.S. election may present new variables, with voter turnout and intensified divisions within minority groups potentially becoming decisive factors. This requires close attention from all parties to respond to possible new developments. Briefing. Topic: Challenges of the U.S. Department of Justice in monitoring elections. Key points. 1. The U.S. Department of Justice has long dispatched federal monitors to polling places to protect the voting rights of vulnerable groups and prevent undue political influence. However, in recent years, some state governments controlled by Republicans have begun opposing the presence of federal monitors at polling stations. 2. Missouri and Florida have explicitly prohibited federal monitors from entering polling places, accusing the DOJ of overreach. Other Republican-led states have also expressed skepticism about allowing federal monitors. 3. Republicans view federal monitors as agents of the Biden administration and untrustworthy. In contrast, Democrats see this as a dangerous trend that undermines election oversight. 4. Since the Supreme Court's 2013 ruling invalidating key provisions of the Voting Rights Act, the federal government's monitoring power has significantly weakened, requiring cooperation from state governments to access polling places. 5. Meanwhile, states and political groups have increased their own monitoring efforts, sometimes leading to harassment of election workers and voters. Summary. The U.S. Department of Justice has long sent federal monitors to polling places to protect the voting rights of vulnerable groups and ensure electoral fairness. However, in recent years, some Republican-controlled state governments have begun opposing the presence of federal monitors, viewing them as untrustworthy agents of the Biden administration. This trend undermines the federal government's ability to oversee elections and could negatively impact electoral fairness. At the same time, states and political groups are ramping up their own monitoring efforts, which can lead to harassment of election workers and voters. These changes warrant close attention. Briefing. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is approaching, and the Financial Times provides comprehensive election coverage and analysis. The Financial Times has launched the U.S. Election Countdown newsletter to provide readers with the latest updates and analysis on the 2024 presidential election. Additionally, the Financial Times has established a special section on the 2024 U.S. presidential election, focusing on reporting and interpreting various aspects of this election. Furthermore, the Financial Times has introduced the Democracy 2024 feature, exploring the broader trends of this political year. For readers, the Financial Times offers comprehensive election coverage and analysis, helping them gain a deeper understanding of this critical political event. Readers can subscribe to the digital edition to access full reporting and enjoy high-quality news services. Overall, the Financial Times is presenting a thorough and in-depth report on the 2024 U.S. presidential election, providing necessary information and insights. Briefing. The UK Conservative Party faces a devastating defeat in the 2024 election, retaining only 121 seats. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will exit politics. Although he made history as the first British Prime Minister of Indian descent, he failed to address deep-rooted economic issues during his tenure, ultimately leading to the Conservative Party's defeat. New Prime Minister Rachel Reeves and Chancellor Kemi Badenoch face significant challenges in driving economic transformation and reducing wealth inequality. Meanwhile, the U.S. is approaching a critical presidential election. If Trump is re-elected, his irresponsible, fact-averse, and self-centered foreign policy will further exacerbate global uncertainty and raise concerns among U.S. allies. In contrast, Kamala Harris, while potentially differing on some foreign policy issues, would bring more stability and accountability. Regardless of who is elected, the U.S. choice will have profound implications for the world. Overall, these articles reflect the dramatic changes in the current political landscape in both the UK and the US, highlighting the critical role of leaders in addressing economic, social, and foreign policy challenges. Despite the uncertainties, maintaining independent and courageous journalism remains essential to ensure the public can make informed choices. Briefing: Behind the Times. Behind the Times is a series of independently produced short films showcasing the stories behind the news reports of the Times and the Sunday Times. These reports have changed the course of history, but little is known about the threats to life, legal disputes, and tests of resilience that journalists face in their pursuit of truth. These short films highlight the challenges of journalism and emphasize the dedication and courage of reporters. They are not only entertaining, but also provoke thought about the significance and value of journalistic work. These reports expose corruption, lies, and injustice, bringing justice and change to society. Despite the controversies and resistance these reports have sparked, the Times and the Sunday Times continue to uphold a fearless and fair approach to reporting the truth. These short films reveal the intrinsic value of journalism, inspiring us to cherish press freedom and defend the truth. Briefing: 1. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, made a serious mistake in Arabic promotional materials, with letters in the wrong order and incoherent, sparking outrage among Arabic speakers. This is seen as a symbolic failure in her attempt to connect with Arab voters. 2. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris stated that she strongly opposes President Biden's criticism of Trump supporters. Harris expressed her intention to represent everyone, regardless of their support for her. 3. Israel launched a large-scale airstrike on the Lebanese city of Baalbek, calling for the evacuation of all residents. This is a military action targeting Hezbollah. 4. The Daily Telegraph is seeking readers to share their weekly spending habits to understand consumer behavior. This series of reports has gained widespread popularity and provides valuable insights. Overall, these articles cover various topics, including U.S. politics, the Middle East situation, and reader interaction in the British media. While the content is broad, there are connections between the articles that form a relatively complete news briefing. Not enough relevant content to generate a news report. October 30, 2024 briefing: Severe flooding in Spain. Key points. 1. Valencia province in Spain has experienced severe flooding, resulting in at least 70 deaths and several people missing. 2. The floods have caused widespread power outages and road disruptions, with high-speed train services also suspended. The Spanish Ministry of Defense has mobilized aerial resources, military psychologists, and trained rescue dogs to assist in the search for victims. 3. The Spanish Prime Minister has urged the public to remain vigilant, and the King has expressed condolences and concern. Rescue efforts are facing significant difficulties, with many people trapped in vehicles or buildings awaiting rescue. 4. This flooding is considered the most severe, cold low-pressure weather event in the Valencia region since the 21st century, similar to situations in 1987 and 1982. 5. Air and rail transport have been severely affected, disrupting airports and routes across Europe. Summary: Spain has faced a severe flooding disaster, resulting in significant casualties and damage to infrastructure. The government and military are working tirelessly on rescue efforts, but face numerous challenges. This extreme weather event has severely impacted transportation in Spain and surrounding areas. Briefing: in an era filled with anxiety, division, and uncertainty, the power of literature and storytelling is particularly important. Turkish author Elif Shafak, speaking at the Frankfurt Book Fair, called for slowing down and using literature and wisdom to rebuild empathy and humanity. At the same time, The Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times recently announced that they would no longer endorse presidential candidates, sparking discussions about media independence and the health of democracy. Some commentators suggest that this Olympic-style detachment may stem from the private interests of newspaper owners. Additionally, Trump has announced his candidacy for the 2024 presidency again, claiming he will strictly oversee the election process. This has sparked debates about whether he exhibits fascist tendencies. Some believe he indeed has fascist characteristics, while others argue he lacks the ideological depth and philosophical foundation. Overall, these articles reflect the current societal anxiety, division, and uncertainty, calling for responses to these challenges through literature, wisdom, and democratic checks and balances. Briefing: controversy over Italy's new immigration policy. Key points. 1. The new Italian government has introduced a new immigration policy that transfers some asylum seekers to Albania for processing. This is the first such offshore processing plan in Europe. 2. The plan officially launched in November 2023, with Italy set to pay Albania €160 million annually, hoping to process 3,000 migrants per month in Albania. 3. This policy has sparked widespread controversy. The European Court has ruled that non-EU countries cannot be considered safe countries, undermining this plan. The Italian government has since attempted to salvage the plan through new legislation. 4. German media has reported on this plan, suggesting that this offshore processing model may gain popularity in other European countries as more nations seek ways to curb illegal immigration. 5. Overall, this policy has raised human rights and international law concerns, but it also reflects the increasingly conservative attitudes of European countries on immigration issues. In summary, Italy's new immigration policy has attracted significant attention and controversy, highlighting the divisions and dilemmas Europe faces regarding immigration. China Daily Briefing. 1. The EU imposes tariffs of up to 35% on Chinese electric vehicles. The EU claims that Chinese government subsidies create unfair competition for European automakers and has formally approved high tariffs on electric vehicles made in China. The tariffs will disrupt the global automotive supply chain and harm European consumers. China has sought resolution through dialogue, but the EU insists on this unreasonable and protectionist approach. China has filed a complaint with the WTO, stating it will take all necessary measures to protect the legitimate rights of Chinese enterprises. Both China and the EU should continue negotiations to seek mutually beneficial solutions. 2. Gansu Huaishou County, a month of cultural experience with ancient ginkgo trees. Tianhe Village in Huaishou County boasts 153 ancient ginkgo trees, earning it the title of China's most beautiful ginkgo village. The 2024 Ginkgo Cultural Experience Month event has launched here, attracting tourists to appreciate this natural wonder. 3. Rapid progress in intellectual property protection in Western China. As of the end of September, the number of valid invention patents in the Western region reached 493,000, and registered trademarks reached 6.61 million, representing year-on-year increases of 16.7% and 10.5%. Respectively. Several Western provinces have introduced new regulations to strengthen intellectual property protection, with Sichuan and others establishing intellectual property protection centers and mediation organizations. Overall, this issue of China Daily focuses on the trade dispute regarding the EU's tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, the cultural tourism in Gansu Huaishou County, and the progress made in intellectual property protection in Western China. These topics span trade, cultural tourism, and intellectual property, reflecting the latest developments in these areas. October 30, 2024 Briefing, Japan's election results announced. Key points. 1. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, led by new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba failed to secure a majority in the House of Representatives in this election, marking the LDP's worst electoral result since 2009. 2. According to Japanese media reports, the LDP and its coalition partners only secured 208 seats, far below the target of 233 for a majority. This severely undermines Ishiba's position, and he may need to seek other coalition partners or form a minority government. 3. The Popular Constitutional Democratic Party, CDP, and its leader Yoshihiko Noda performed well, winning 143 seats. The CDP has promised to engage in sincere dialogue with all parties, stating that the LDP Komeito government cannot continue. 4. This election reflects voter dissatisfaction with rising inflation and the LDP's funding scandals. Ishiba has pledged to start anew and become a fair, just, and honest party, but his shift in stance and the cabinet's lack of female ministers have sparked controversy. Overall, the election results pose a significant blow to Ishiba's government, raising concerns about his political future. Japan's political landscape may be on the verge of a new shift. October 30, 2024 briefing. 1. Tensions rise on the Korean Peninsula. According to South Korean intelligence, North Korea may have completed preparations for its 7th nuclear test and is preparing to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has recently showcased his military nuclear program, testing various missile systems and revealing a secret uranium enrichment facility in September. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol expects North Korea to conduct a nuclear test and ICBM launch ahead of the U.S. elections to exert pressure. North Korea's military cooperation with Russia is deepening, with reports indicating that North Korea has sent about 10,000 troops to participate in the war in Ukraine, potentially escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula. 2. Aftermath of the Fukushima nuclear power plant accident. Tokyo Electric Power Company announced the successful extraction of molten nuclear fuel debris from Reactor 2 of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, marking the first extraction of molten fuel since the 2011 accident. The extracted sample weighs less than 3 grams and will be sent to a laboratory in Ibaraki Prefecture for analysis, paving the way for the comprehensive cleanup of nuclear waste at the power plant. Cleaning up high radioactive nuclear waste at the Fukushima plant is the biggest challenge in its decommissioning process, which is expected to take decades. 3. Performance of Asian stock markets. Major Asian stock markets generally declined, with the Nikkei 225 index rising nearly 1% due to gains in technology stocks. Shares of Chinese electric vehicle companies fell, impacted by the EU's imposition of tariffs of up to 45.3% on Chinese electric vehicles. Australia's inflation rate for the third quarter stood at 2.8%, the lowest level in over 3 years. In summary, this briefing focuses on the rising tensions on the Korean peninsula, the aftermath of the Fukushima nuclear power plant accident, and the performance of Asian stock markets, reflecting the complexity of the current international situation across geopolitical, nuclear safety, and economic finance domains. October 30, 2024 briefing. Topic: The relationship between Australian Prime Minister Albanese and Qantas Airlines. Key points. 1. Prime Minister Albanese has maintained a close relationship with Qantas CEO Alan Joyce for a long time, having received complimentary upgrades on Qantas flights multiple times. This has raised concerns and dissatisfaction among some Labour Party members. 2. Some members within the Labour Party have expressed that Albanese's long-standing acceptance of complimentary upgrades from Qantas may influence his decisions regarding the airline, such as last year's rejection of Qatar Airways' request to increase flights. 3. Senior government officials have publicly supported Prime Minister Albanese, stating that he has been fighting for workers' rights against Qantas, such as supporting equal pay legislation. 4. Opposition leader Dutton criticized Albanese for not truthfully answering whether he had ever requested complimentary upgrades from Qantas CEO. Summary. This briefing focuses on the relationship between Australian Prime Minister Albanese and Qantas Airlines. Albanese's long-standing close ties with Qantas and his receipt of complimentary upgrades have sparked dissatisfaction among some Labour Party members. However, senior government officials have expressed support for Albanese, highlighting his advocacy for workers' rights against Qantas. Opposition leader Dutton has criticized Albanese for not being forthcoming about whether he requested complimentary upgrades from Qantas CEO. Overall, this issue reflects the complexity of the relationship between the Prime Minister and large corporations, generating some political controversy. October 30, 2024 briefing. Key points. 1. With the U.S. election approaching, economic issues have become a key topic. Democratic candidate Harris and Republican candidate Trump are making final campaign efforts in the critical swing state of North Carolina. Harris warns that if Trump is re-elected, he will use prisons and the military to suppress political opponents. Trump defends his racially charged remarks made at a rally last weekend. 2. The independent districting experiment in Colorado may provide a model for alleviating political polarization in the U.S. A ballot proposal in Florida could also overturn the state's law banning abortion after 6 weeks. 3. Trump claims to favor high tariffs, but has not clarified whether he would exempt allies like Canada. The trade policies of both the Democrats and Republicans could have different impacts on U.S.-Canada economic relations. 4. Voting tendencies among Black and Latino voters may become crucial. The situation in Ukraine may also significantly influence the election. 5. There is uncertainty regarding voting times and the announcement of results. According to polls, Harris and Trump are nearly tied nationwide. The situation in key swing states will determine the final outcome. 6. Several articles also address hot-button issues in the election, such as immigration, the economy, trade, and abortion. Overall, this U.S. election is characterized by high levels of division and uncertainty, with various issues potentially becoming decisive factors. Regardless of the outcome, the U.S. political landscape will face profound adjustments. Briefing: latest developments in Australia's aviation and energy sectors. 1. Qantas workers strike. Hundreds of Qantas union workers went on a 24-hour strike at Melbourne and Brisbane airports this Wednesday, demanding a 5% annual wage increase and a one-time payment of 15%. Qantas management described the demands as unsustainable, while workers shouted, "We keep flights running." Negotiations have been ongoing since April, but the latest collective agreement expired in July. 2. Australia to supply solar power to Singapore. The Singapore Energy Market Authority has conditionally approved a project by Australian company Sun Cable, which plans to build a 4,300-kilometre undersea cable to supply solar power from northern Australia to Singapore. This project could provide solutions for other countries transitioning to renewable energy, but faces numerous geological, financial, and technical challenges. Similar cross-border undersea cable projects are underway in the UK and Morocco, helping to enhance grid reliability and supply security. 3. Melbourne school traffic accident. A 40-year-old mother accidentally crashed her car into the fence of a primary school in Melbourne while picking up her child, resulting in the death of an 11-year-old boy and injuries to 4 other students. Police described it as a tragic accident and are investigating the cause. In summary, these reports reflect the latest developments in Australia's aviation and energy sectors, as well as a tragic school traffic accident. This information is significant for understanding the current socio-economic situation in Australia. Briefing: Israel continues bombing of Gaza, causing heavy civilian casualties. 1. Israeli military operations have intensified, with bombings in Gaza resulting in at least 30 deaths, including 20 children. Israel claims the airstrikes targeted an observer, but it has faced criticism. 2. The Israeli army has also entered northern areas, attempting to eliminate reorganized Hamas militants. This ongoing conflict has resulted in over 43,000 Palestinian deaths. 3. Israel is also engaged in a new war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, resulting in over 2,700 deaths. The escalation of conflict has prompted the U.S. to seek a 60-day ceasefire agreement, but Israel continues its bombings. 4. The ongoing military operations severely impact humanitarian aid in Gaza, with food and medical supplies paralyzed. Local residents are calling on the international community to take action to stop Israel's attacks. 5. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib faces new charges, as the court rules he must defend against allegations related to the 1MDB scandal. This could signify the end of his political career. In summary, Israel's military actions have brought immense disaster to civilians in Gaza, drawing widespread international attention. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib also faces new legal challenges. Briefing: India-China border conflict eases, India celebrates Diwali. On October 30, 2024, Indian and Chinese troops completed the withdrawal from the eastern Ladakh region at Depasang and Demchok, marking the completion of withdrawal at all friction points since May 2020. Both sides will exchange sweets at border personnel meetings to celebrate Diwali. Meanwhile, in Ayodhya, Uttar Pradesh, local authorities held grand Diwali celebrations. Thousands of oil lamps were lit along the Saryu River, setting a world record. This is the first Diwali celebration in Ayodhya since the completion of the Ram Temple on January 22. Additionally, in the US, an increasing number of South Asian Americans are beginning to merge Halloween with Diwali celebrations, coining the term Diwaloon. This fusion reflects the dual cultural identity of the South Asian community in America. Overall, this report highlights the easing of tensions at the India-China border and the festive celebrations of significant holidays by both India and South Asian Americans, emphasizing the theme of cultural fusion and the preservation of traditions. Briefing: the U.S. presidential election heats up. 1. Former Somali national team captain Iqra Ismail was suspended in the UK for wearing long pants during the Greater London Women's Football League. The FA stated that female players can choose appropriate attire based on religious beliefs. 2. Indian Prime Minister Modi and Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez jointly inaugurated an Airbus C-295 military aircraft manufacturing plant in Vadodara, India, marking the first military aircraft final assembly line established by the private sector in India. 3. In the upcoming U.S. presidential election, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump have very close support rates, with the situation in key swing states being exceptionally intense. According to polls, Harris slightly leads Trump nationwide, but Trump still holds an advantage in critical swing states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina. 4. The accuracy of poll results has been a subject of controversy, with inaccuracies observed in the 2016 and 2020 elections, as well as the 2022 midterms. Experts believe that due to the rapidly changing intentions of voters, polls are challenging to accurately predict election outcomes. Overall, the 2024 U.S. presidential election is entering a heated phase, with support rates for both party candidates being very close and the situation in key swing states being exceptionally intense, making the election outcome difficult to predict.